The city was silent that morning, but the silence was heavy, almost unnatural. Clouds gathered above the tall skyscrapers, dark and heavy, as if the sky itself was mourning. Outside the city's most expensive funeral home, a long line of black cars stood one after another. Each car carried men and women dressed in black suits, expensive dresses, and long veils covering their eyes. They had come to pay their last respect to one of the most powerful families in the country. The billionaire's wife, known for her beauty, her kindness, and her quiet elegance, was declared dead just 2 days ago. The news had shocked the entire city. Newspapers carried her picture on the front page. Television anchors spoke about her life, her charity, her mysterious sudden death. Nobody expected it. Nobody was ready. And now, on this day, the world came together to say goodbye inside the large hall. Everything was prepared with perfect care. The chandelier above glowed with a cold white light. Rows of white lilies filled the air with their perfume. A golden coffin stood in the middle of the hall, surrounded by candles, guarded by men in black uniforms. Photographers tried to capture the moment, but the guards pushed them back. The billionaire wanted this funeral to be grand, but private. The billionaire himself sat in the front row, his face hard like stone. He was a man feared by many, respected by all, and known for his wealth that seemed endless. Today, however, he looked smaller, weaker. His shoulders bent forward, his hands shook slightly. His wife was gone, or at least that's what the world believed, guests whispered quietly. Some cried. Some stared at the coffin with curiosity, and some, especially those from the business world, wondered what this death meant for the empire the billionaire had built. As the priest began to speak, his voice echoed across the hall. He talked about love, about loss, about life and death. His words were calm, meant to bring peace to the broken hearts in the room. But the billionaire did not hear a single word. His mind was elsewhere, lost in memories of his wife, her smile, her laughter, her gentle hand that always calmed his anger. He could not understand how life had changed so quickly. Just as the priest raised his hands for a prayer, the heavy doors of the funeral hall creaked open. The sound was loud, unnatural, like thunder striking in the middle of silence. Every head turned toward the door, and then they saw him. A man. Dirty, ragged, his hair unwashed, his beard thick and tangled. His clothes were torn, his shoes falling apart. His face carried the lines of hunger, pain, and endless nights on the streets. He was a homeless man, someone who clearly did not belong among the richest people in the country. He stood at the doorway, breathing heavily, eyes wide with desperation. Stop. His voice rang across the hall, strong and loud, shaking everyone. The priest froze mid-sentence. The guests gasped. The billionaire slowly raised his head, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. She's alive. The homeless man shouted, his voice breaking with emotion. She's alive. Do not bury her. You are making a mistake. For a second, silence took over. Nobody moved. Nobody believed what they had just heard. And then chaos broke. Guards rushed toward the homeless man, grabbing his arms, trying to push him out. Guests stood up, whispering loudly, some angry, some confused. Reporters pulled out their cameras, snapping pictures as quickly as they could. The priest stepped back, shocked, unable to continue. The billionaire's face turned red with anger. How dare this filthy man walk into his wife's funeral? How dare he insult this sacred moment? Throw him out! The billionaire roared, his voice filled with fury, but the homeless man struggled against the guards. His eyes locked on the golden coffin. Tears filled his eyes as he screamed again. She's not dead. She's alive. I saw her. I swear to you, she's alive. The guests froze. His words carried a strange weight, a desperate honesty. Some people looked at the billionaire, expecting him to deny it immediately, but the billionaire said nothing. His jaw tightened. His hands gripped the chair. His eyes cold. The homeless man's voice cracked as he shouted again. If you bury her, you will be burying her alive. Gasps filled the hall. Women clutched their pearls. Men whispered nervously. The idea was terrifying, unthinkable. but somehow his voice made it sound real. One of the guards punched the homeless man in the stomach, trying to silence him. He fell to his knees, coughing, but even in pain he lifted his head and cried out, "Listen to me. She's not gone. Please, believe me. She's alive." A few guests begged the guards to stop hitting him. Some even whispered to the billionaire, "What if he's telling the truth? What if?" The billionaire's face showed no emotion, but inside, his heart began to race. The homeless man's words had struck something deep, a small hidden doubt he had tried to bury inside his mind. When his wife died, the hospital had acted strangely. They had covered her face quickly. The doctors avoided his eyes when they declared her death, and the body, he remembered, had felt warm when he touched her hand for the last time. At that moment, he had convinced himself it was grief playing tricks on him. But now, this madman was shouting the very fear he had tried to ignore. The guests continued whispering. Some laughed, calling the homeless man crazy. Others, however, felt chills run down their spines. What if this wasn't madness? What if this was truth breaking through the surface? The homeless man struggled back to his feet, his face bleeding, his eyes blazing with determination. He pointed at the coffin with a trembling finger. "Open it," he demanded. "Open it, and you will see the truth." The hall went silent again. The words hung in the air like a storm about to explode. The billionaire clenched his fists. His mind was torn apart. On one side, his pride, his anger, his disbelief. On the other side, his fear, his doubt, his desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, his wife was not gone forever. The homeless man took a deep breath, his voice softer now, filled with pain. "She helped me once," he whispered. "When I had nothing, she gave me food, she gave me kindness. I owe her my life. That is why I came. Believe me, she is not dead." The billionaire's eyes widened. His wife was known for helping strangers, for giving charity quietly. Could this be one of those people? The guests leaned forward, caught between disbelief and curiosity. The guards still held the homeless man, but they no longer looked confident. Doubt was spreading like fire in the room, and in that moment, the golden coffin that stood in the center of the hall suddenly became more than just a symbol of death. It became a question, a mystery, a secret waiting to be revealed. The billionaire stood up slowly, his tall figure casting a shadow across the hall. Every eye turned toward him, waiting for his decision. Would he silence the homeless man forever? Or would he give in to the terrifying possibility that his wife might still be alive? The homeless man locked eyes with him, silently begging for one chance. And the billionaire's lips parted. His voice was low, but it cut through the silence like a knife. "Stop the ceremony." Gasps filled the air again. The priest dropped his prayer book. The guards froze. The guests looked at one another in shock. The billionaire walked toward the coffin, his steps slow, heavy, echoing across the hall. His eyes never left the golden box where his wife supposedly lay. His heart pounded like a drum in his chest, and behind him, the homeless man whispered one last time, "She's alive." The camera flashes blinded the room. The reporters captured every second. The entire city would soon hear about this unbelievable moment. But for now, inside that hall, one question remained. Was she truly alive? Or was this the madness of a broken man? The truth waited in the silence of the coffin, and everyone in the room knew that the next few seconds would change everything. The golden coffin still stood at the center of the hall, glowing under the chandelier. But the atmosphere inside had completely changed. The whispers of the guests grew louder, filling the air like restless waves. Nobody looked calm anymore. Some clutched their hands in silent prayers. Some stared at the homeless man, their eyes filled with disbelief. Others kept glancing at the billionaire, waiting for his final command. The billionaire stood near the coffin, sharp eyes fixed on the man who had dared to interrupt his wife's funeral. His chest rose and fell heavily, his mind torn between grief, doubt, and rage. For years, he had built an empire where his word was law. Nobody had ever humiliated him in public. And yet here he was, inside his own wife's funeral, being challenged by a man who lived on the streets. "Who are you?" The billionaire's voice thundered across the hall. His tone was cold, sharp, and filled with authority. The homeless man, still held tightly by two guards, raised his head slowly. His lips trembled, but his eyes showed no fear. I am no one. Just a man who has nothing, but I know the truth. And the truth is your wife is alive. The billionaire's jaw tightened. His fingers curled into fists. He wanted to strike the man himself, to silence him forever. But something inside held him back, something small, something weak, but something real. Doubt. The guests gasped at the homeless man's words. One elderly woman whispered, "Alive. How could it be?" Another man shook his head in anger. "This is madness. He's disturbing the family in their grief." Reporters scribbled notes, their cameras flashing, hungry for every detail of the drama unfolding before their eyes. The billionaire took a step closer, his eyes narrowing like blades. "You dare speak such lies in front of me? In front of my family? At her funeral?" His voice grew louder, sharper. "Do you know who I am?" The homeless man swallowed hard. His voice cracked, but he forced the words out. "I don't care who you are. I care about her. She saved me once, when I was dying on the streets. She gave me food. She gave me warmth. She gave me hope. I owe her my life, and I will not let you bury her alive." A shockwave went through the guests. Some gasped. Others murmured, "Could it be true? Did she really help this man?" The billionaire's wife had always been known for her quiet kindness, for her secret acts of charity. She was not like other rich women who flaunted their wealth. She often gave without expecting recognition. Could this ragged stranger be one of the souls she had saved? The billionaire's face turned red. His eyes burned with fury. "Lies," he shouted. "You filthy liar. She is gone. She is dead, and you dare come here to insult me, to insult her, to destroy this sacred moment." He raised his hand as if to strike, but then stopped himself. His chest heaved with anger. He turned sharply to the guards. "Throw him out now." The guards tightened their grip on the homeless man's arms. But before they could drag him away, the man shouted once again, his voice echoing through the hall. "Her hand was warm when you touched her, wasn't it?" The billionaire froze. The words struck like a blade straight into his heart. His breath caught in his throat. His eyes widened for a brief moment before he masked his face again with anger. But it was too late. The guests had seen it, the flicker of fear, the shadow of doubt. Whispers spread like wildfire. "What does he mean? Warm?" Did the billionaire notice something? The billionaire's pulse quickened. How did this man know? He had never spoken of it to anyone. That moment 2 nights ago in the hospital, when he touched his wife's hand, it had not felt cold. It had felt warm, alive, as if life had not fully left her. But the doctors had been quick, insisting she was gone, refusing him another look. He had convinced himself it was grief, just grief. And yet, this homeless stranger had spoken it aloud, as if reading his secret thoughts. The billionaire's eyes blazed with rage. "Enough," he roared. His voice shook the chandeliers. "You know nothing? You are nothing. Do not play with me, or you will regret the day you were born." The homeless man's body trembled under the guard's hold, but his eyes never left the billionaire. His voice softened, filled with sadness rather than fear. "I know you loved her. I know you don't want to believe me, but listen to your heart. Listen to the doubt inside you. She is not gone. She is waiting for you to save her." The hall grew tense. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The priest stood silently, holding his book close to his chest, unsure of what to do. Even the guards hesitated, unsure whether to drag the man out or wait for further orders. The billionaire turned to face the coffin again. His wife's face was hidden under the golden lid. He had not seen her properly since the hospital. He had not demanded to open the coffin. He had trusted the doctors, the staff, the people around him. But now, standing here, with the stranger's words ringing in his ears, he felt as if the coffin itself was mocking him. The homeless man whispered again, his voice breaking with emotion. "Please, if you ever loved her, open the coffin. Just once. If I am wrong, I will leave and never return. But if I am right, you will save her life." The billionaire's heart pounded. His fingers twitched. He wanted to scream, to silence this man forever. But inside, the seed of doubt had already grown into a storm. The guests leaned forward, desperate to see what he would do. Some of them wanted him to throw the man out, to end this madness. Others secretly hoped he would open the coffin. Just to end the unbearable suspense, the billionaire clenched his jaw, his face turning hard again. He pointed at the homeless man, his voice like thunder. "If you are lying," he said slowly, "I will make sure you never breathe another word again. Do you understand?" The homeless man nodded weakly, his eyes shining with tears. "I am not lying." The billionaire turned back to the coffin, his shadow falling across the golden surface. His hands trembled, but he hid it behind his fury. He signaled the guards, "Bring the keys." The hall gasped. A woman fainted in the back row. The priest dropped his book again. The guests began to rise from their seats, their faces pale, their hearts racing. The guards hesitated, looking at each other nervously. Opening a coffin during a funeral was unheard of. It was madness, but they obeyed. Bringing the small silver key that would unlock the lid, the billionaire's hands shook as he reached for it. His lips trembled, though he forced them into a grim line. He whispered under his breath, words only he could hear. "Please, let this be a lie." The homeless man's voice broke the silence one last time. "Truth cannot be buried." The billionaire's fury boiled inside him, clashing with fear and grief. He gripped the key, staring at the coffin that might hold either the end of his life or a miracle. The hall held its breath, and with a trembling hand, the billionaire bent down and placed the key into the lock. The funeral hall was filled with unbearable silence. Every pair of eyes was fixed on the golden coffin, waiting for the billionaire's next move. His hand still rested on the key, his knuckles white from gripping it too tightly. Sweat rolled down his forehead, though the air inside was cool. But before the billionaire could turn the key, the homeless man spoke again. His voice was not loud this time. It was soft, trembling, but filled with a strange kind of power. "You don't remember me, do you?" he asked, his eyes locked on the billionaire. The billionaire glanced up, frowning. His anger burned in his chest. "Why should I remember a beggar?" he snapped. The homeless man lowered his gaze for a moment, then lifted it again, his voice breaking with emotion. "Because your wife remembered me. She was the only one who did." The guests shifted in their seats, their whispers rising again. Some leaned closer, curious. Others shook their heads, thinking it was just another trick. But the billionaire's face stiffened. His wife. The one topic that made his heart both fragile and furious. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. The homeless man swallowed hard. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, as if pulling memories from deep within his broken soul. Then he began to speak, and the hall fell silent, his words pulling everyone into the past. "It was 3 years ago," the man said slowly. "I had nothing. No family, no job, no home. The streets were my only roof, the cold, my only blanket. I begged on the corners, but people walked past me like I was invisible. They didn't see me. They didn't care if I lived or died." His eyes filled with tears as he continued. "One night it was raining, the kind of rain that cuts through your skin. I had no shoes, no coat. I was lying near a shop doorway, shaking, coughing, waiting for the end. And then she appeared." The hall grew quieter. Even the guests who had doubted him leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the man. His words carried pain, but also a strange beauty. She stopped her car when nobody else would. She stepped out with an umbrella, her face glowing under the streetlight. She looked at me, really looked at me, as if I was a human being again. She asked me my name. I could barely answer. I was too weak. She put her own coat over me and called someone on her phone. I thought she would hand me to the police, but instead, she stayed with me.
Ow!
The man's voice cracked. His lips trembled as the memory poured out of him. She gave me food with her own hands. She paid for a doctor to check me. She didn't leave until I was safe in a shelter. And before she went, she pressed money into my hand and whispered, "Don't give up. You are still alive. You can still change your life." Gasps spread through the hall. People looked at each other in shock. The billionaire's wife was known for charity, but never in such personal ways. Could this really be true? The homeless man wiped his eyes with the back of his dirty sleeve. I never forgot her words. I never forgot her face. She became my angel. The reason I kept fighting, even when I wanted to end it all, and when I saw her again, days ago, alive, I knew I could not stay silent. I had to save her, the way she once saved me. The hall trembled with whispers. Some people wept quietly. Others shook their heads, unsure whether to believe such a story. But the sincerity in the man's voice was undeniable. The billionaire stood frozen. His mind was spinning. His wife. His gentle, kind wife. She had done this in secret. She had gone out at night and helped a man like this. He had never known. She had never told him. She always kept her good deeds hidden, saying true kindness needed no spotlight. His throat tightened. His heart felt heavy. Could this broken man be telling the truth? Could he really have met her? The homeless man raised his head again, his eyes burning with determination. I am not here for money. I am not here for fame. I am here because I owe her my life. And if you bury her without checking, I will never forgive myself. I saw her. I swear on my soul I saw her breathing. The billionaire's anger flared again, trying to crush the storm inside him. He slammed his fist on the coffin, making the candles flicker. Enough, he roared. His voice cracked through the hall like thunder. Do not fill my head with lies. Do not play with my grief. She is gone. The homeless man's face twisted with pain. He struggled against the guard's grip, shouting, "If you loved her, why are you afraid to look? Why are you afraid to open the coffin?" The words stabbed the billionaire like knives. His face went pale, his hands shaking. The guests gasped, their whispers growing louder and louder. "Why, indeed?" One woman murmured. "Why doesn't he open it?" "Yes, why?" Another whispered. "What is he afraid of?" The billionaire's chest heaved with anger, but behind the rage was something darker fear. A fear he could not admit, because deep inside he remembered. He remembered her hand, warm against his own. He remembered the strange look on the doctor's face, the rush to cover her. He remembered his heart whispering, "Something is wrong." The homeless man's voice softened again, trembling but filled with truth. She believed in hope. She gave hope to me. And now she needs your hope. Don't let her down. Don't let her die in darkness. The hall fell silent again. Even the guards stopped moving. The billionaire's body shook as he stood near the coffin, his eyes burning holes into the golden surface. Flashbacks flooded his mind, her laughter at the dinner table, her hand in his, her gentle eyes when she looked at him with love. Could it? She'll really still be out there. Could this ragged stranger truly be her last messenger? His pride screamed inside him, "Do not believe this madness. Do not listen to a beggar." But his heart whispered, what if he is right? What if she still breathes? The billionaire's face twisted in torment. He looked at the priest, who lowered his eyes and said nothing. He looked at the guests, who stared back at him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. He looked at the guards, waiting for his order. And finally, he looked at the homeless man, whose eyes glistened with tears, but whose spirit did not break. For the first time in years, the billionaire felt powerless. His wealth, his power, his control, none of it mattered, because the truth was locked inside the coffin. He turned back slowly, his fingers trembling as they brushed against the golden lid. His lips parted, whispering words only he could hear. "If you are alive, forgive me." The guests leaned forward, holding their breath. The homeless man closed his eyes, whispering a silent prayer, and the billionaire slowly began to turn the key. The sound of the lock echoed through the hall like a scream. What lay inside, nobody knew. But one thing was certain, nothing would ever be the same again. The sound of the lock clicked inside the coffin. It was not loud, but in the silence of the funeral hall, it echoed like thunder. Every head turned, every breath held back, every heart pounding. The billionaire's hand trembled as he turned the key. His eyes were cold, but behind them burned a storm of fear. The guests leaned forward, terrified of what they might see. Some covered their mouths, some prayed quietly, some could not look at all. Ah! The homeless man's eyes widened, tears streaming down his dirty cheeks. This was the moment he had risked everything for. But before the billionaire could lift the lid, one of the guards stepped forward. "Sir," he whispered urgently, "are you sure about this? This is against custom, against respect." The billionaire's head snapped toward him, his eyes blazing with fury. "Respect?" he growled. "If there is even one chance she is alive, then respect means nothing." The guard stepped back instantly, trembling. The billionaire's hand gripped the edge of the coffin. His chest rose and fell heavily. He whispered, again, almost to himself, "Forgive me." Then slowly, painfully, he lifted the lid. Gasps exploded across the hall. The chandelier lights reflected on the golden coffin lid as it rose. Everyone's eyes stretched wide, some mouths opening in shock, others trembling in fear. But inside, there was no sight of his wife. The coffin was empty. A wave of screams filled the room. Women clutched their pearls, men shouted in confusion, and the reporters' cameras clicked wildly. The billionaire staggered back, his face pale as snow, his heart hammering against his ribs. His her body was not there. The homeless man cried out, "Do you see now? Do you believe me? She was never dead?" The guests erupted into chaos. "What is this?" one man shouted. "Where is the body?" Another woman screamed, "How can this be? We saw her death." "In the news." The billionaire's fists clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. His chest heaved with rage and fear. He turned on the guards, his voice like fire. "Where is she? Where is my wife's body?" The guards looked at each other nervously. None of them spoke. The billionaire grabbed one of them by the collar, dragging him close. "Answer me," he roared. "Where is she?" I don't know, sir," the guard stammered, trembling in fear. "The hospital delivered her body. We placed it here under orders. We never opened it." The billionaire shoved him aside, his face twisting with fury. "Lies. All of you liars." The homeless man shouted again, struggling against the guards who still held him. "She is alive. They tried to hide it. I told you. I saw her with my own eyes." The billionaire's mind spun in circles. He remembered the hospital. He remembered how quickly they had covered her face, how the doctors avoided his questions, how cold and strange the staff had seemed. And now the coffin was empty. The guests' whispers grew darker. Some said it was a scandal. Some said it was witchcraft. Some said the billionaire himself had done something. The reporters were already typing headlines into their phones. "Shocking twist at billionaire's wife's funeral. Empty coffin." The billionaire's chest burned with anger. His eyes locked on the homeless man. "If you know something, speak," he demanded. His voice shook the entire hall. The homeless man looked back at him with desperate eyes. "I followed men one night," he said quickly, "men in black suits. They carried someone into a van. I swear it was her. I saw her face for a moment. She was weak, but she was breathing. They took her away." The hall gasped again. "Men in black suits?" one guest whispered. "Who were they?" The billionaire's eyes narrowed. His empire had many enemies, business rivals, jealous partners, even dangerous criminals. Who could have staged such a deception? Who could have stolen his wife from him? The homeless man struggled free for just a second, pulling something from his pocket before the guards tightened their grip again. He held it up high in his trembling hand. It was a silk scarf, torn, stained, but recognizable. The billionaire's heart stopped. He knew that scarf. It was his wife's. She had worn it the last evening he saw her alive. The night before the hospital took her away. The homeless man's voice cracked as he shouted, "This was hers. I found it where they took her. I kept it because I knew one day I would need to prove the truth." The billionaire staggered back, his eyes fixed on the scarf. His hands trembled as he reached for it, but the guards hesitated. Homeless man's face twisted with pain. "Let me show him, please," the billionaire roared. "Give it to me." The guard released the man's hand reluctantly. The billionaire snatched the scarf, his fingers shaking. He pressed it to his face, and for the first time in years, tears rolled down his cheeks. The scent, faint, faded, but still there. It was hers. His wife's. The hall erupted again. Guests whispered wildly, some in fear, some in disbelief. The billionaire's body trembled. His wife's body was missing. Her scarf was real. The homeless man's story was no longer just madness. It was a piece of truth. He turned slowly to face the homeless man, his eyes burning like fire. "Where?" he demanded. "Where did you see her? Tell me everything." The homeless man gasped, his voice breaking. "An old hospital, not the one where she was declared dead. A different one. They kept her there. Hidden. I followed them once, but I was chased away. I couldn't help her then, but I came here so you would know." The billionaire's rage boiled hotter than ever. His empire, his life, his love had been played with like a game. Someone had taken his wife from him. Someone had lied to his face, staged her death, placed an empty coffin before him, nearly buried the truth forever. His fists shook, his teeth ground together. His voice came out low, but filled with deadly promise. "Whoever did this will pay." The homeless man's eyes glistened with tears. "Save her before it's too late," he whispered. The billionaire turned back to the guests, his face stone hard again.
Ow.
"This funeral is over," he declared. "Everyone leave." Gasps spread. The priest hesitated. The guests panicked, but his voice was unshakable. "Leave," shouted, and the guards began pushing people out. Reporters tried to stay, shouting questions, but the guards forced them away. Soon, only the billionaire, the homeless man, and a few loyal guards remained in the hall. The golden coffin stood open, empty, mocking them all. The billionaire turned slowly, his eyes sharp as blades. He stepped closer to the homeless man, his voice low but deadly serious. "If what you say is true, you are my only witness. If you lie, I will destroy you. But if you speak truth, you will help me bring her back." The homeless man nodded, his face pale but determined. "I am ready. I owe her my life." The billionaire's eyes narrowed. He held the scarf tightly in his fist. "Then take me," he said. "Take me to where you saw her." The night was cold when the billionaire left the funeral hall. His steps were heavy, but his mind burned like fire. He held the scarf tightly in his hand, the only proof that his wife might still be alive. Behind him, the homeless man followed closely, nervous but determined. The city lights flickered against the dark sky. Reporters shouted questions from a distance, but the guards pushed them back. The billionaire ignored them. He did not care for news, for gossip, or for the chaos spreading across the world. Only one thought lived in his heart now: find her. The car door opened. The billionaire stepped inside with the homeless man. The guards sat in front, tense and watchful. As the car began to move, the billionaire turned sharply to the homeless man. "Speak," he ordered. "Tell me everything you saw. Every detail. Do not leave a single thing out." The homeless man swallowed hard. His hands shook slightly, but his eyes met the billionaire's. "It was 2 nights after the hospital declared her dead," he began. "I was looking for food near the back streets. Then I saw them, 2 men in black suits. They carried something wrapped in white sheets. At first I thought it was a body, but then the sheet moved. The billionaire's breath caught. Moved. Yes, the man nodded quickly, like someone breathing, like someone alive." The billionaire's heart pounded against his chest. His fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned pale. The homeless man continued. "They put her in a black van. I followed them as far as I could. The van stopped at an old hospital on the edge of the city. Broken windows, no lights inside, but people were working there. Strange people. I saw doctors, but they were not normal. They looked dangerous, cold. They pushed her inside. That is when I found this." He pointed to the scarf, the billionaire still gripped tightly. Silence filled the car. The billionaire closed his eyes, his wife's face flashing in his mind, the way she smiled, the way she spoke softly, the way her hand felt in his. Now, she was somewhere dark, hidden, maybe in pain. "Why did you not come sooner?" he asked suddenly, his voice sharp. The homeless man lowered his head. "I tried," he whispered. "I shouted on the streets, but nobody believed me. They laughed. They called me crazy. I was beaten and chased away. I had nothing, no proof, until today." The billionaire studied him carefully. His eyes were sharp, searching for lies. But he found only truth, desperate, painful truth. The car drove through silent streets. At last, the homeless man lifted his hand and pointed. "That's the place," he said quietly. The car slowed. At the end of a dark road stood the building. Old, broken, half-forgotten. Its windows were cracked, its walls stained, and weeds grew around its gates. Faint lights flickered inside. The billionaire's chest tightened. His instincts screamed that something dangerous was hidden here. The guards exchanged nervous glances. "Sir, this place looks abandoned," one of them said carefully. "Abandoned places hide the darkest secrets." The billionaire replied coldly. The car stopped. The billionaire stepped out, his shoes crunching on broken glass. The air smelled of rust and rot. The homeless man shivered, but followed. The guards stayed close, hands on their weapons. The gate creaked as they pushed it open. The sound echoed through the night, sharp and haunting. The group stepped inside. The billionaire's eyes scanned every shadow, every broken door, every corner. His heart was steady now, no longer shaken by fear. Only determination remained. They moved deeper inside. The hall was dark, but faint sounds came from below, machines humming, footsteps moving, voices whispering. The billionaire raised his hand, signaling silence. Everyone froze. He leaned closer, listening. "Room 7. A voice echoed faintly. "Keep her stable." His heart nearly stopped. The homeless man grabbed his arm, eyes wide. "Do you hear? It's her." The billionaire's fists shook. His wife was here, alive. They followed the sound down a long corridor, the air growing colder with every step. The walls were lined with rusted doors, some locked, some half open. Strange stains marked the floor. Finally, they reached a staircase leading underground. A dim light flickered below. The billionaire moved first, his steps silent but strong. The others followed closely. At the bottom, a wide basement stretched out. Old medical equipment stood scattered across the room. Strange men in coats moved, quickly checking machines, writing notes, and whispering in low voices. And then he saw it. In the center of the room, under the weak light of a hanging bulb, was a bed. On it lay a woman, covered with thin sheets, her face pale, her body weak, but unmistakably her. The billionaire's heart exploded in his chest. His wife, his knees nearly gave way, but rage and love held him up. He wanted to run to her, to hold her, to scream her name. But before he could move, 2 guards in black suits appeared at the edge of the room. Their eyes were sharp, their weapons ready. The billionaire froze. The homeless man whispered, "That's them, the men I saw." The black-suited guards stepped closer, their voices like ice. "This area is restricted. Leave now." The billionaire's guards reached for their guns, but the billionaire lifted a hand, stopping them. His eyes locked on the men in black. "I will not leave," he said coldly. "That woman is my wife." The room fell silent. Even the machines seemed to pause. The men in black exchanged glances. One smirked cruelly. "Your wife is gone. What you see is not for you to touch." The billionaire's rage boiled over. "Do not lie to me," he roared. "I know she is alive, and I will take her back." The men in black raised their weapons slowly, aiming straight at him. The homeless man gasped, pulling at the billionaire's arm. The guards shifted nervously, their hands trembling on their guns. The air grew heavy, thick with danger. The billionaire's eyes did not move from his wife. His heart thundered. For a single moment, time seemed frozen, and then a weak sound escaped the woman's lips. Her eyes fluttered open just slightly. Her voice cracked, but the words were clear. "Help me." The billionaire's soul shook. His wife had spoken. She was alive. The homeless man cried out in shock. The billionaire's guards raised their weapons, ready for a fight. The men in black tensed, their eyes narrowing. One of them shouted, "Stop them! She must not leave this place." And then chaos exploded. The basement was no longer silent. The moment the billionaire's wife whispered, "Help me," the air cracked with chaos. The guards in black raised their weapons, their eyes cold, their movements sharp. The billionaire's guards reacted instantly, pulling out their guns. The sound of metal clicks echoed through the room. "Stand down." One of the black-suited men barked. His voice was harsh, commanding. But the billionaire did not stand down. His eyes were locked on the bed where his wife lay. Her lips trembled. Her hand twitched slightly on the sheets. She was alive. He could see it. He could feel it. The billionaire's chest heaved as his rage boiled over. For years he had fought business rivals, enemies, and even his own fears. But this was personal. This was war. "Take one more step toward her," he growled, "and you will not leave this place alive." The men in black exchanged dark smiles, as if they had been waiting for this moment. Suddenly, one of them fired. The bullet cracked through the air, smashing into a metal tray on the side. Sparks flew. The guests screamed, "Ah!" Machines beeped wildly. The billionaire's guards returned fire. The basement erupted into chaos. Bullets rang out, walls shattered, sparks burst from broken wires. The smell of gunpowder filled the air. The homeless man dove behind an overturned table, his heart racing. He covered his ears, his whole body trembling. He had seen fights before, but never one like this, not in such a place, not with such high stakes. The billionaire did not hide. He stood firm, his eyes sharp, moving only when needed. His guards surrounded him, firing with precision. The men in black were skilled, but the billionaire's men were loyal, and they fought like wolves, protecting their leader. Amid the chaos, the billionaire's eyes flicked back to the bed. His wife's weak form shook with every sound, her eyes fluttering. She was in danger, more danger than ever before. He shouted over the noise, "Get her out! Get her out now!" Two of his guards nodded, breaking formation to rush toward the bed. But before they could reach her, a loud crash shook the basement. The far door burst open. 5 more black-suited men stormed in, guns blazing. The billionaire's men barely had time to react. Bullets ricocheted off the walls, shattering glass, breaking equipment. One of the billionaire's guards cried out, falling to the floor. The homeless man's heart nearly stopped. He peeked from behind the table, his breath shaking. "There are more of them," he gasped. The billionaire's teeth clenched. His rage grew hotter, his fists tighter. He picked up a fallen weapon from the ground, his hands steady despite the storm around him. He moved forward. His guards shouted in panic, "Sir, stay back!" But he did not. He charged. The billionaire was not just a man of wealth. He had fought battles before, different ones, darker ones. His body moved with speed and power. He struck one black-suited man across the face with the butt of the gun, sending him crashing to the floor. He turned, fired 2 shots, and another enemy fell. The room shook with violence. Sparks flew. Shadows danced. The homeless man stared in awe. This was not the man he expected. This was not just a billionaire. This was a fighter, a lion protecting his pride. But the battle was not in his favor. For every enemy that fell, more seemed to appear. Black-suited men were relentless, ruthless. And then suddenly, one of them broke past the line of guards. He reached the bed where the billionaire's wife lay. His hand grabbed her arm, his other hand lifting a syringe filled with dark liquid. The homeless man's blood ran cold. "They want to finish her," he screamed. The basement was swallowed in darkness. The billionaire's guards shouted, their voices echoing. The homeless man stumbled, crashing into a metal tray. Sparks still hissed from broken wires, but the light was gone, and then the scream. The billionaire's heart froze. It was her, his wife. Her voice, weak yet filled with terror, cut through the blackness like a knife. "Where is she?" He roared, his voice shaking the walls. But the only reply was laughter, a slow, mocking laugh, chilling every soul in the room. The guards raised their weapons, their eyes scanning blindly. "Sir, stay back." One of them shouted. The billionaire did not move back. His fists clenched, his breath heavy. He stepped forward into the darkness, every nerve in his body screaming with rage. The laughter grew louder. Then suddenly, bright lights snapped on. The basement flooded with white light, blinding for a moment. Everyone's cured. And then they saw him. The man in the black coat stood calmly at the far side of the room. His face was no longer bare. A dark mask now covered it, smooth and sharp, with only his cold eyes visible. In his hand, he held a small device that still glowed faint red, the switch that had killed the lights. And behind him, two men in black suits gripped the billionaire's wife, dragging her up from the bed. Her eyes were wide with fear, her body trembling. A cloth was tied across her mouth to silence her cries. The billionaire's blood boiled. He took a step forward, but the masked man raised his hand. "Stop," the villain said calmly, his voice echoing strangely behind the mask. "One more step, and she dies." The billionaire froze. His guards lifted their weapons, but the masked man shook his head. "Do you really want to test me? Do you want to see her fall before your eyes?" The room went silent. The billionaire's jaw tightened. His entire body shook with rage, but he forced himself to stay still. The masked man chuckled softly. "That's better. Now we can talk." The homeless man peeked from behind a table, his face pale with fear. His hands shook, but his eyes stayed fixed on the woman. He whispered to himself, "She's still alive." "Hold on," the billionaire's voice thundered. "Why are you doing this? What do you want with her?" The masked man tilted his head, his eyes glittering with cruel amusement. "What do I want? I want you broken. I want your empire shattered. And your wife? She is the key." The billionaire's teeth ground together. "If you touch her again, I will." "You will what?" The masked man interrupted, his voice rising. "Shoot me? Kill me? That will not bring her back. That will not save her life. In fact," he lifted a hand, and one of the black-suited men pressed a knife to the woman's throat. Her eyes filled with tears. The billionaire's chest ached. He wanted to run forward, to rip them apart with his bare hands. But he knew one wrong move would end her life. The masked man stepped closer. "You think money gives you power?" he hissed. "You think your billions protect you? But here in this place, your money is nothing. Your guards are nothing. Your empire is nothing. The only thing you have left is her. And soon even she will be gone." The billionaire's eyes burned like fire. "You don't know me," he growled. The masked man laughed. "Oh, I know you very well. I have studied you. Every weakness, every secret, every fear. And I know one thing. Without her, you are nothing." The words cut deep, but the billionaire did not bend. He stood taller, his fists tight. "You are wrong. Without her, I am rage, and rage will destroy you." The masked man's smile faded. His eyes narrowed. "We shall see." He snapped his fingers. Instantly, more men in black poured into the basement from hidden doors. At least 10 of them, each armed, each ready. They surrounded the billionaire and his guards. Guns pointed at their heads, their chests, their hearts. The homeless man's breath caught. He pressed himself against the wall, his mind screaming, "We can't win this. There are too many." The billionaire's guards tensed, their fingers on triggers. But they knew the truth. Outnumbered, outgunned, trapped. The masked man's voice echoed again. "You have a choice, billionaire. Drop your weapons, or watch your wife die right now." The billionaire's guards glanced at him, waiting for his command. Sweat dripped down their faces. The billionaire's jaw tightened. His wife's terrified eyes met his. For a moment, he saw everything: her laughter, her kindness, her warmth, the life they once had, the life they lost, and he knew he could not risk her. His hand lifted slowly. With a heavy breath, he dropped his gun to the ground. It clattered against the floor. One by one, his guards followed. Weapons hit the concrete with dull thuds. The air grew heavier. The masked man clapped slowly again. "Wise choice," he said mockingly. Very wise. The billionaire's fists trembled. His guard's eyes filled with shame. The homeless man closed his eyes in despair, but then something strange happened. The billionaire's wife, though weak, moved her hand slightly. Her fingers pressed against the sheets she was wrapped in. For a moment, it almost looked like she was trying to signal something. The billionaire's eyes caught it. His heart raced. She is telling me something. But what? Before he could understand, the masked man spoke again. Take them, he ordered coldly. All of them. The guards in black stepped forward, chains in their hands. The billionaire's guards resisted at first, but a gun pressed to their heads silenced them. The billionaire stood firm, his eyes still locked on his wife. He wanted to scream, to fight, to tear the mask off the man's face. But now was not the time. Not yet. The masked man's voice was smooth, cruel. You will come with me, billionaire. You will see what happens when power is stripped away, when hope is stolen, and then when you are broken, perhaps I will return her to you, piece by piece. The homeless man's blood ran cold at the words. He wanted to scream, to run, to stop them. But fear gripped him tighter than chains. The black-suited men began dragging them toward another door. Deeper into the underground, the billionaire's wife let out a muffled cry, her eyes begging, pleading. For a brief second, their eyes locked, and the billionaire gave her a look back, not of defeat, but of promise. I will come for you. I swear it. The masked man noticed the silent exchange. His smile returned. How sweet, he sneered. Hope. The last lie of men who are about to fall. And with that, the heavy steel door slammed shut behind them. Darkness and silence fell once again. But in the shadows, secrets waited to be revealed. The heavy steel door slammed shut with a deafening sound. The echo rolled through the underground halls like thunder. The billionaire, his guards, and the homeless man were shoved forward by black-suited men. Their hands were bound with chains, their steps forced by strong grips on their arms. The billionaire's jaw was clenched tight, but his eyes never lost their fire. The homeless man stumbled as he was pushed. His bare feet scraped against the rough concrete floor, leaving small cuts. He wanted to scream, to beg, but he bit down on his tongue. He had promised himself he would not break Knot when she still needed saving. The masked man walked calmly behind them, his footsteps slow, echoing. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. Do you feel it now? He asked softly. The weight of helplessness, the taste of defeat. No one answered. The billionaire's fists tightened against the chains. His silence was louder than words. The corridor grew darker as they were dragged deeper underground. Strange symbols lined the walls, carved roughly into the stone. Old doors passed by, thick rusted, some with iron bars. Faint cries echoed from behind them, like whispers from forgotten souls. The homeless man's skin crawled. He leaned closer to the billionaire, whispering shakily, This place. This isn't just a hospital. It's a prison. The billionaire's eyes scanned the walls, the doors, the shadows. He said nothing, but in his mind he knew the homeless man was right. Finally, they reached a vast iron gate. It creaked loudly as it was pulled open. Behind it was a large underground chamber, damp and filled with rows of cells. Some empty, some not. The prisoners inside were silent at first, but when they saw the new arrivals, whispers began. Another one? Who are they? That's him. The billionaire. The billionaire ignored the whispers. His eyes were fixed forward. His wife was somewhere in this place. Somewhere close, the masked man gestured, and the black-suited guards shoved the captives into a single cell. The door slammed shut behind them with a metallic clang. The lock clicked, sealing them inside. The billionaire gripped the bars tightly, his knuckles white. His guards tested the chains on their wrists, but they were too strong. The homeless man sat in the corner, his chest heaving. The masked man stepped closer to the bars, his eyes gleaming through the mask. Welcome, he said softly, to the place where truth rots. The billionaire glared at him. What do you want from me? The masked man tilted his head. What I want. is to watch you break. I want to see the man who had everything lose, the only thing that mattered. The billionaire's jaw tightened. You will never have that satisfaction. The masked man chuckled. We'll see, he turned, signaling to his men. Bring her. The billionaire's heart stopped. His guards stiffened. The homeless man's eyes widened in shock. A moment later, 2 men appeared at the far end of the chamber. Between them, they dragged the billionaire's wife. Her body was weak, her steps barely holding her. Her wrists were bound, her mouth gagged. But her eyes burned with fear and hope. The billionaire's hands shook violently against the bars. Let her go, he roared. His voice thundered across the chamber, rattling the very walls. But the masked man only laughed. You will see her, but not as you wish. The guards dragged her into a separate cell directly across from the billionaire. They pushed her roughly inside, then locked the door. She stumbled, falling to the cold floor. The billionaire's heart shattered. He gripped the bars, his voice breaking. Stay strong. I am here. Her eyes lifted, tears glistening. Even through the gag, she tried to speak. He understood her without words. I believe you. The homeless man pressed his back to the wall, whispering in disbelief. They locked her right in front of us. Like a cruel game, the masked man stepped between the 2 cells, his voice calm, almost amused. Now you see, billionaire? She is close enough to touch, yet out of reach. Close enough to save, yet beyond your power. Every second you remain here, she will slip further from your grasp. The billionaire's rage burned hotter. If you hurt her, the masked man interrupted sharply, his voice cold. Do you still believe you control the outcome? He leaned closer, his eyes boring into the billionaire's. You do not. I do. He stepped back slowly, spreading his arms. This place, this prison, is filled with truths your world cannot handle. Secrets hidden for decades. People who should be dead, but are not. You thought your wife's story was rare? But look around. Prisoners in nearby cells pressed closer to their bars. Some nodded weakly. Some whispered. One old man called out hoarsely, It's true. We were all declared dead. Yet here we are, the homeless man gasped, his eyes wide. Declared dead? All of you. The old man coughed, his voice breaking. Doctors. Politicians. Businessmen. They take people. Fake deaths. Hide us here. Experiments. Secrets. Bargains. The billionaire's blood ran cold. His wife was not the only victim. The masked man's voice was sharp. You see, billionaire, this is bigger than you. Bigger than her. This is power. Real power. Power that bends life and death. The billionaire's fists trembled, but he refused to show fear. Power built on lies will fall, he growled. The masked man's smile returned. We shall see. He turned away, walking toward the shadows. Leave them. Let them rot. Soon he will beg. The heavy iron doors slammed again as he left, his guards trailing behind. Silence returned to the chamber. The billionaire gripped the bars, his eyes locked on his wife. She stared back, her tears falling silently. The homeless man crawled closer, whispering, We need a plan. If we stay, we die. If we wait, she dies. We cannot wait. The billionaire's eyes were steel. We will not wait. His guards leaned close, speaking low. Sir, we still have strength. The chains are strong, but not unbreakable. And there are cracks in this prison. We only need time. The billionaire shook his head. We don't have time. She doesn't have time. The homeless man's heart pounded. He looked at the billionaire's wife, so close, yet untouchable. He remembered the first time he had seen her alive, being dragged by the men in black. He had sworn to save her. Now he sat in chains, useless. But then he saw something. Near the back of their cell, half hidden under dirt and stone, was a loose brick. His breath caught. Slowly, carefully, he crawled toward it, making sure the guards outside were not watching. His fingers touched it. It moved. His eyes widened. He turned quickly to the billionaire, whispering with urgency, "There's a way." Behind the wall, the billionaire's eyes sharpened. His wife's eyes widened too, hope flickering in them for the first time. And then a heavy voice echoed from outside the chamber. "Bring the doctor." The homeless man froze. The billionaire's blood turned cold. The prisoners around them whispered in fear. The doctor. Not him. Anyone but him. The billionaire's wife's eyes filled with terror. She shook her head violently, tears spilling. The billionaire's grip on the bars tightened until his skin broke. Blood dripped down his fingers. His voice came out low, deadly. "Who? Is the doctor?" The homeless man's voice trembled as he whispered back, "The one. Who decides who lives and who dies?" The chamber was silent, except for the whispers of frightened prisoners. The billionaire's fists were bleeding from the iron bars. His wife, locked in the cell across from him, shook her head violently, her muffled cries echoing. The homeless man sat frozen near the loose brick, his hands trembling, and then Knit began. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor, slow, deliberate, each one striking the ground like a hammer. The prisoners stiffened. Some turned away, pressing themselves against the walls. Others lowered their heads in despair. Whispers filled the air. "The doctor. Don't look at him. God help us." The iron door creaked open, and he walked in. The doctor, he was tall, his frame thin but sharp. His white coat swayed as he moved, though it was stained in places with dark, dried marks no one dared to name. His gloves were black, polished, but the way his fingers flexed made them look more like claws. His face was pale, almost ghostly, with sharp cheekbones and cold, empty eyes behind thin glasses, but it was his smile that froze every heart. A smile that didn't reach his eyes. A smile that promised pain. The billionaire's stomach tightened. His wife whimpered, her body trembling. The doctor stopped in the middle of the chamber, his eyes scanning the prisoners slowly. He spoke softly, yet his voice carried a weight that silenced the air. "Which one?" From the shadows, the masked man appeared again. His voice was calm, almost casual. "The billionaire." The doctor turned, his gaze landing on the cell. The billionaire stood tall, his eyes locked with the man's. The chains around his wrists clinked as he raised his bleeding hands. The doctor's smile widened slightly. "So this is him." The billionaire's guards stepped protectively closer, their bodies tense. The homeless man pressed his back against the wall, trying to vanish into the shadows. The doctor stepped forward, studying the billionaire like he was a specimen on a table. Power, money, influence, and yet his eyes flicked to the chains. So fragile, the billionaire's jaw tightened. "If you touch her," the doctor raised a finger, silencing him instantly. His eyes moved to the woman across the chamber. She stared back, her fear clear. "Beautiful," the doctor said softly, "but weak. It's very weak. She should have died already. And yet," he tilted his head, "she lives." The billionaire gripped the bars, rage burning in his chest. "She lives because she is stronger than you will ever understand." The doctor chuckled. "Perhaps. Or perhaps she lives because I allow it." The billionaire's heart pounded. He wanted to break through the bars, to rip the man apart, but he forced himself to stay still. The doctor's eyes returned to him. His voice was calm, but the words were knives. "I give choices. Choices that reveal who you really are." The billionaire's teeth clenched. "I don't play games." The doctor's smile sharpened. "You will." He raised his hand. Guards dragged forward to prisoners from the other cells one young man, barely in his 20s, his face pale with terror, and one old woman, frail and weak. Both struggled, their cries filling the chamber. The billionaire's eyes narrowed. "What is this?" The doctor stepped closer. "A choice." He pointed to the two captives. "One will live. One will die. You will decide." The chamber went cold. The prisoners gasped. The billionaire's guards froze. The homeless man's stomach twisted violently. The billionaire's wife shook her head desperately, her muffled screams filling the air. The billionaire's chest heaved. I will not choose. The doctor's smile widened. Then both die. The young man screamed. The old woman sobbed. The guards raised their knives, ready. The billionaire's fist slammed the bars. Stop! His voice roared, shaking the chamber. The doctor's eyes glittered. Then choose. The billionaire's heart thundered. His mind raced. The young man's terrified eyes met his. The old woman whispered through her tears, Please. Mercy. It was unbearable. A trap, the homeless man whispered desperately. Don't listen. Don't choose. He wants to break you. But the billionaire's wife's eyes locked with his. She shook her head firmly, as if begging him not to give in. The billionaire looked back at the doctor. His voice was low, filled with steel. I choose. Neither. The doctor's smile faded. The billionaire's voice thundered again. If anyone dies, it will be you. The chamber went silent. The doctor's face darkened. Slowly, he turned to the masked man. Defiance, he said softly. Dangerous, but interesting. The masked man's voice was calm. Break him. Use her. The billionaire's blood ran cold. His wife's eyes widened with terror. The doctor's smile returned. Ah, yes. He stepped toward her cell. She pressed back against the wall, shaking her head violently. Don't you dare. The billionaire roared, slamming his fist so hard the bars shook. Blood ran freely from his hands. The doctor stopped just outside her cell. He looked back at the billionaire, his smile cruel. Another choice? Hers. The billionaire froze. His wife's terrified eyes met his. The doctor spoke softly. To save her husband, she must give up something of herself. Her body, her freedom, her will. The billionaire's heart exploded with rage. No. His scream thundered across the chamber, so loud even the guards flinched. His breath caught. There's a way out, he whispered, barely audible. There's a way out. The billionaire's guards noticed, their eyes flashing with hope. But they stayed silent. The doctor stepped closer to the woman. His gloved hand reached toward her face. The billionaire's roar shook the prison. If you touch her, I swear I will kill you with my bare hands. The doctor stopped. Slowly, he smiled again. He turned back to the billionaire. Then save her, he said softly. Prove you can. He snapped his fingers. Guards dragged the billionaire out of the cell. Chains pulled tight against his wrists, biting into his skin. His wife screamed behind her gag, thrashing violently. The homeless man pressed harder against the brick, his heart racing. It shifted further. The hollow behind it grew wider. Hope flickered. The billionaire struggled against the guards, his eyes never leaving his wife. Hold on, he shouted. I will come back for you. The doctor's smile gleamed. We shall see. Then the door slammed shut. The chamber went dark again. The billionaire was gone. The wife collapsed, sobbing. The homeless man pressed his face against the hollow space, whispering desperately, Please, God, let this be real. But in the distance, the doctor's voice echoed faintly through the corridors. Life or death. That is the only truth. The chamber was silent after the steel door slammed shut. The billionaire's wife collapsed against the wall of her cell, her muffled cries echoing softly. She clawed at the chains on her wrists, shaking her head, whispering through the gag. Her eyes stayed fixed on the empty cell across from her where her husband had stood only moments before. Now it was empty. Cold. The homeless man crouched near the corner. His trembling fingers pressed against the loose brick. Sweat ran down his face, his chest heaving. He pushed harder, stone grinding against stone. Finally, with a low crack, the brick slid free. Behind it, dark hollow stretched into blackness. It was narrow, carved crudely, like a tunnel hidden behind the prison wall. His eyes widened. His whisper was urgent. It's real. There's a way. The billionaire's guards rushed closer, crouching beside him. One of them touched the hollow space, his face hardening. This could lead out. Or deeper. But it's something. The homeless man nodded frantically. His heart beat faster. We can escape. We can find him. We can save her. Across the chamber, the woman saw the movement. Hope flickered in her tear-filled eyes. She pressed against her bars, straining to see. The guard closest to her raised a finger to his lips, signaling silence. She nodded quickly, understanding. But before they could move further, footsteps echoed again. The homeless man froze, panic rising in his throat. He quickly slid the brick halfway back into place, hiding the hollow. The guards shifted, pretending to sit casually. The iron door creaked open. A black-suited guard entered, carrying a tray. Bowls of water, pieces of stale bread. He placed them on the ground, sliding them into the cells. The prisoners stayed quiet, staring at the food but not touching it. The guard smirked cruelly. Eat. You'll need strength for what comes next. The billionaire's wife turned her face away, refusing. The homeless man glanced at the hollow space, his heart racing. If they were caught, it would be over. The guard lingered for a moment, his eyes suspicious. Then, he spat on the ground and left. Door slamming behind him, silence returned. The homeless man exhaled shakily, whispering, "We can't wait long. He won't survive whatever they're doing." The lead guard nodded. His voice was low. "At night, fewer men patrol. That's our chance." The homeless man's hands trembled, but determination burned in his eyes. "Then we escape tonight." Meanwhile, the billionaire was dragged into a long corridor, his wrists bound tight. The guards shoved him forward until he stumbled into another chamber, this one different. It was bright, too bright. White lights flooded the room, reflecting off steel walls. Strange machines lined the sides, buzzing softly. Tables with straps, syringes, blades. The air smelled of chemicals and blood. And in the center stood the doctor. His smile was calm. His gloved hands clasped behind his back. "Welcome," he said softly, "to my theater." The billionaire's eyes burned with hatred. "You think you can scare me with lights and tools?" The doctor chuckled. "Not scare. Reveal. Strip away your mask. Make you face what you hide." The guards forced him into a chair, strapping his arms and legs. The metal bit into his skin. The doctor stepped closer, his eyes scanning the billionaire's face like a surgeon studying a patient. "Do you know why men like you fear me?" The billionaire said nothing. The doctor leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "Because I do not kill quickly. I break slowly, piece by piece, until even the strongest beg." The billionaire's jaw tightened. His voice was steel. "I will never beg." The doctor smiled. "We shall see." He raised a hand. A guard wheeled forward a tray. Sharp instruments gleamed under the white light. The billionaire's muscles tensed, but his eyes never left the doctor's. Back in the prison chamber, the homeless man pressed his ear against the hollow space. Faint sounds echoed, distant clangs, whispers, maybe even screams. His stomach turned. He whispered to the guards, "It leads somewhere." Maybe where they took him. The lead guard's face hardened. "Then we follow." They worked quickly, pulling more bricks free. The hole widened, revealing a tunnel just large enough for a man to crawl through. Darkness swallowed the space. The air staled. The homeless man's hands shook, but his voice was steady. "I'll go first." One guard grabbed his arm. "No, if it collapses, you'll be trapped." The homeless man pulled free. He saved her once. "I promised myself I won't let him fight alone." "I'll go." The guard studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Go, but be silent." The homeless man crawled into the tunnel. His knees scraped against stone, dust filling his lungs. The darkness pressed against him, but he kept moving. Behind him, one of the guards followed. The billionaire's wife pressed her hands against the bars, watching with desperate hope. She mouthed words through her gag. "Save him," in the bright chamber. The doctor lifted a small knife, its edge glinting. He moved slowly, deliberately, as though savoring every second. The billionaire's heart pounded, but his voice was steady. "You think pain frightens me? I have lived with pain. You think torture will break me? I have lost everything before." The doctor's smile sharpened. "Not everything. Not yet," he gestured. A screen flickered to life on the wall. The billionaire's breath caught. On the screen was his wife, bound, gagged, her terrified eyes staring into the camera. The doctor leaned close. His whisper was poison. "Every scream you give me spares her one." The billionaire's chest ached. His muscles strained against the straps. Rage burned like fire in his blood. But he said nothing. The doctor's eyes narrowed. His voice was low. "You will break. They all break." He raised the knife. At that same moment, the homeless man's hands scraped against stone. He crawled further through the tunnel, his breath ragged. Suddenly, the tunnel split. Two paths. He froze. Behind him, the guard whispered, "Which way?" The homeless man listened carefully. From the left path came faint sounds, metal clashing. From the right, muffled voices. He hesitated. His heart raced. If he chose wrong, they'd be lost. He closed his eyes, whispering, "Please, guide me." Then he crawled left. The air grew colder, the sounds louder, and then he saw it. A faint crack of light ahead. He crawled faster, dirt caking his skin. He pressed his face against the crack. His eyes widened. Through the gap he saw the billionaire strapped to the chair. The doctor standing over him, knife in hand. The homeless man's blood froze. He turned quickly to the guard behind him, whispering fiercely, "I found him." The guard's eyes narrowed. "Then we move fast." But before they could push, further voice echoed behind them in the tunnel.com. Cold. Was wondering who would find the way. The homeless. Man's heart stopped. He turned. Slowly, and they're blocking the tunnel behind them, stood the masked man. His eyes glittered through the mask. His voice was low, dangerous. "You thought you could escape me?" The tunnel went dark as he stepped closer. The tunnel was suffocating. Dust fell from the cracked ceiling as the homeless man froze in place, his body trembling. The narrow space behind him was now filled by a shadow tall, still, and terrifying, the masked man. His eyes glowed faintly through the darkness of the mask, sharp like blades. His voice was low, calm, yet heavy with menace. "I warned you," he said softly. "This place is not for rats to crawl through." The homeless man's breath caught. His body pressed against the stone, his heart pounding so hard it felt like it would burst. The guard behind him cursed under his breath,
Ow.
reaching for the chain that bound his wrist, as though ready to fight. But the tunnel was too narrow. They had nowhere to move, nowhere to strike. The masked man stepped forward slowly, each step echoing in the tight darkness. "You thought you were clever? You thought you found a way. But every path here," his voice grew colder, "belongs to me," the homeless man whispered shakily. "Why are you doing this? What do you want from us?" The masked man tilted his head. His voice was almost amused. "What do I want? I want to see the world's strongest man beg on his knees. I want his empire to turn to dust. And you," his eyes burned through the mask, "you are nothing but a piece in that game." The guard whispered sharply, "Move, boy. Crawl forward." Now. The homeless man turned back to the crack of light ahead, his chest heaving. Through it, he could still see the billionaire strapped to the chair, the doctor circling him like a predator. The billionaire's fists clenched against the restraints. His jaw was tight, his body bleeding from shallow cuts across his arms. The doctor's knife gleamed, but the billionaire had not screamed, not even once. The homeless man's throat tightened. He whispered, "He's still holding on. We can't let him down." The guard pressed a hand to his back, urging him forward. But before they could crawl, the masked man's hand shot out. A metallic click. The tunnel shook violently. Dust poured from the ceiling, small rocks tumbling down. The homeless man's eyes widened. He set a trap. The ground beneath them trembled. Chains of steel hidden in the walls suddenly snapped forward, coiling around their legs like serpents. The guard cried out, kicking violently. But the chains tightened. The homeless man screamed, thrashing, but another chain wrapped his wrist. Pulling him back, the masked man's voice was calm, cold. Unshaken by the chaos, You think this tunnel was built for escape? No. He stepped closer, his figure filling the dark space. It was built for despair. Meanwhile, in the white chamber, the billionaire's body dripped with sweat and blood. The straps cut into his flesh, but his eyes never left the doctor's face. The doctor leaned closer, his pale smile sharp. Most men break by now. The silence, the cuts, the threats, they fall quickly. But you are stubborn. The billionaire spat blood onto the floor. You mistake stubbornness for strength. This is love, and love doesn't break. The doctor chuckled softly. Then let us test your love. He gestured to the screen again. The wife's image appeared. She was still in her cell, gagged, her body trembling as she watched the empty bars across from her. The doctor's voice was cruel. One word from me, and she will suffer pain far worse than yours. All I need is your scream to spare her. One scream, and her suffering lessens. The billionaire's chest heaved. His fists shook violently. The doctor leaned closer. So scream for her. Let me hear you. Prove your love. The billionaire's jaw tightened. His teeth ground together until blood filled his mouth. But he stayed silent. The doctor's smile faded slightly. His voice turned sharper. Still refusing? Very well. He raised a syringe, its needle long and glinting. A dark liquid shimmered inside. This will not kill you. It will only make your blood burn as though fire runs through your veins. The billionaire's eyes darkened, but his voice was steady. Do it. You will not win. The doctor drove the needle into his arm. The billionaire's body tensed violently, every muscle tightening as the burning spread. His jaw locked, his teeth grinding. His veins bulged as though fire truly rushed through them. But no scream left his lips, only silence. The doctor studied him for a long moment. Then his smile returned slowly. Impressive. But even fire cannot last forever. Back in the tunnel, the homeless man writhed against the chains, his skin burning as the steel bit into his wrists and legs. He gasped desperately, tears stinging his eyes. Let me go. Please. The masked man crouched low, his voice calm. No, I want you to see. I want you to watch him fall and know that you could not save him. The homeless man's chest heaved. His heart screamed to keep fighting. His mind raced. There has to be a way. Something. And then he remembered the brick, the wall at their cell. His breath caught. If the tunnel had one weak spot, maybe there were others. He twisted violently, slamming his bound wrist against the tunnel wall. Pain shot up his arm, but a crack formed in the stone. The masked man's head tilted. Still trying? The homeless man glared up, his voice shaking but filled with fire. You don't understand. I promised myself I won't let him die. Slammed again. And again, stone crumbled. The chains tightened, cutting deeper. But the wall cracked further. The guard beside him strained against the coils, pulling with all his strength. With a roar, one of the chains snapped. The homeless man's eyes widened. Hope flickered. The masked man's calm voice turned sharper. Enough. He raised a small device in his hand. A switch. The homeless man's breath stopped. The masked man's voice was cold. One press, and this tunnel collapses. You, the guard, the billionaire, all crushed beneath stone. Shall I end it now? The tunnel fell silent. Dust drifted slowly from the ceiling. The homeless man's chest heaved. His eyes stung with tears. He looked back through the crack of light. The billionaire still fought in silence, his body shaking, his veins burning with fire. Yet he had not screamed. He had not fallen. The homeless man's whisper was barely audible. No, I won't stop. He slammed his wrist into the wall again. Cracks spread wider. The masked man's finger hovered over the switch. His voice was deadly. Then you will all die. Meanwhile, the billionaire's wife pressed desperately against her bars, her muffled cries echoing. She slammed her fists until her skin bled. Tears streamed down her face. She could feel him suffering even from across the chamber. She dropped to her knees, her forehead against the cold iron. In her heart, she prayed silently, her words trembling. Please, give him strength. Please save him back in the tunnel. The masked man's finger began to press the switch. The homeless man roared, slamming the wall one final time, and with a deafening crack, the stone shattered. Light flooded into the tunnel. Blinding them, on the other side was not escape. It was another chamber, filled with rows of glass tanks, and inside each tank floated people, still motionless, their faces pale. The homeless man's scream tore through the air. What? What is this place? The masked man's voice was soft, almost pleased. This is where the dead live. The homeless man's scream echoed through the chamber. His body froze, his eyes wide as he stared through the shattered wall. Glass, rows and rows of glass tanks stretched into the darkness, each one filled with pale liquid that glowed faintly under hidden lights, and inside each tank floated people, men, women, even children. Their faces were ghostly white, their eyes closed, their bodies suspended as though asleep. The guard's voice trembled, his usual iron control cracking. This isn't real. This can't be real. The homeless man shook his head violently. No, they're dead. They have to be dead. But then, one of the faces twitched. A hand floated weakly against the glass. Fingers curled slowly, as if trying to reach out. The homeless man staggered back, horror flooding his veins. They're alive. Oh God, they're alive. The masked man stepped into the chamber, his tall figure framed against the broken wall. His voice was calm, almost amused. Alive? Dead. Such simple words. These people are neither... He walked closer, his gloved hand brushing the glass of one of the tanks. Inside, a woman's eyes flickered, open, clouded, empty, yet moving. They are mine. The homeless man's chest tightened. What did you do to them? The masked man tilted his head. What your billionaire hero refused to do? He built empires, but he wasted resources. I preserved them. People nobody remembered. People society threw away. Now they are my soldiers. My shadows. The guard spat angrily, his voice shaking with rage. You turned them into monsters. The masked man's chuckle was low, chilling. Monsters, or survivors. They are proof that hope is nothing but an illusion, that life is only what power allows it to be. He tapped on the glass lightly. The sound echoed. Inside, the floating figure's body jolted. Its head snapped forward, eyes glowing faintly with unnatural light. The homeless man stumbled back, his stomach twisting. This isn't human anymore. The masked man's voice sharpened. Exactly, and soon. Your billionaire will join them, meanwhile in the torture chamber. The billionaire's veins still burned, fire crawling through his body. His fists shook against the straps. His breath came in shallow gasps, but his eyes burned with defiance. The doctor leaned closer, his cruel smile fading into irritation. Still no scream. Still silence. Do you think this will save her? Do you think strength will protect her? The billionaire spat blood onto the floor. His voice was raw but steady. Strength is not silence. Strength is enduring until I tear you apart. Doctor's lips curled. So brave? Then perhaps you would like to see what happens to others who were brave once. He pressed a button. The screen above flickered. Images filled it, not just of the wife, but of the glass tanks. Row upon row of faces suspended in liquid. The billionaire's eyes widened. His breath caught. The doctor whispered these were people who resisted. Men like you. Women who loved. Children who dreamed. All of them thought they could escape. And now they float, forgotten, waiting for commands that never come. The billionaire's body tensed violently. His heart pounded like a drum of rage. The doctor leaned closer. You want to protect her? Then scream. Beg. Give me your voice, and maybe I will spare her this fate. For a moment, The billionaire's vision blurred. He saw his wife's face, pale and trembling. He saw her trapped behind iron. He saw the tanks filled with silent corpses that breathed. His heart screamed inside him. His throat burned to release the pain. But still no sound escaped. Only silence. Back in the chamber of tanks. The homeless man pressed his back against the wall, his breath ragged. He could feel the dead eyes staring at him, even through the glass. The guard whispered harshly, "We can't stay here. We need to get out now." But the masked man blocked the way, his presence towering. His voice was smooth, venomous. "Run. Where will you go? This is deeper than you imagine. Every path leads back to me. Every door opens to my hand." He stepped closer. "You will watch as he falls. You will watch as his wife breaks. And when hope leaves your eyes," his voice dropped lower, "then I will decide if you are useful or if you belong in a tank." The homeless man's chest heaved. His heart hammered. But deep inside, something flared a fire he didn't know he had. He stepped forward, trembling but defiant. "You think you've won, but I've seen the truth. Even in these tanks, even in your torture, people still fight inside. You can't kill hope. Not completely." The masked man tilted his head. For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then his laughter echoed, sharp and cold. "Hope. Foolish boy. Hope is the sweetest lie, and lies are my favorite tools." He raised his hand, snapping his fingers. Instantly, two of the tanks hissed open. The glass slid down, liquid spilling onto the floor. The figures inside stumbled out, their bodies trembling, eyes glowing faintly. Their movements were jerky, unnatural, but strong. They turned their heads toward the homeless man and the guard. The masked man's voice was calm. It's cruel. "Meet the ones who once believed in hope. Now, they belong to me." Meanwhile, the billionaire's wife pressed her bleeding hands against the iron bars of her cage. Her muffled cries tore at the air. She had seen the tanks too, through the hidden screens. Her heart broke as she realized the fate that awaited her husband. Tears streamed down her face. Her knees gave way, and she fell onto the cold stone floor. Her voice broke through the gag in whispers. "Trembling prayers, please. Please let him survive. Please give him strength." Back in the chamber, the homeless man stared in horror as the pale figures stepped closer, their glowing eyes fixed on him. The guard raised his fists, ready to fight, but his face was pale with fear. "Boy, these aren't people anymore." The homeless man swallowed hard, his legs shaking. Maybe not, but they were. And if they were alive once, then maybe— He clenched his fists, his voice breaking but fierce. "Maybe we can still reach them." The first figure let out a chilling, broken gasp, its head twitching unnaturally. It raised its hand like a claw, stepping toward him. The homeless man's heart pounded. He whispered one final word. "Please." The figures froze. Their eyes flickered faintly. A sound like a gasp, like a sob escaped one of their throats. The masked man's eyes narrowed behind the mask. His voice sharpened. "No, this is impossible." The homeless man's chest rose and fell. His voice was desperate, trembling, but filled with fire. "They can still hear. They're not yours. Not completely." The masked man's voice turned into a roar. "They are mine." He raised his device, pressing a button. The figures shuddered violently, their glowing eyes snapping back to his command. They turned toward the homeless man again, moving faster, stronger. The masked man's voice thundered. "If you believe they can be saved, then save yourself from their hands." The chamber shook with the sound of their steps, and the homeless man realized this was no longer just about survival. This was about proving that hope could fight, even the dead. The chamber shook with every step of the pale figures. Their glowing eyes locked onto the homeless boy, their movements sharp, unnatural. The guard stood at his side, fists raised, ready to fight, but his eyes revealed the truth. Fear. The homeless boy's chest heaved. His knees trembled. These were not monsters, not truly. They were people, stolen, twisted, trapped. His heart screamed that if he fought them, if he killed them, then he would be no better than the masked man. The masked man's laughter echoed through the glass chamber. Look at them. Your saviors? Once they loved, once they dreamed, and now they serve. That is all love becomes in the end, obedience to pain. The boy swallowed hard. He shook his head fiercely. No, they're not gone. I saw it. I saw her eyes change when I begged. They can still hear me. The masked man's voice was sharp as steel. Then let us test your lie. He pressed the device in his hand. The figures jerked violently, their heads snapping at unnatural angles. Then, in one terrifying motion, they lunged forward. The guard roared, shoving the boy behind him. His fist smashed into the first figure's jaw, the impact echoing like stone against stone. The figure staggered back but did not fall. It hissed, its glowing eyes burning brighter. Another figure grabbed the guard's arm, its strength monstrous. The guard gritted his teeth, his muscles straining as he fought back. Boy, run! But the boy did not move. His hands shook, his eyes wide. Instead of running, he stepped forward. He shouted with all his strength, his voice raw. Stop! For a moment, the figures hesitated. Their glowing eyes flickered faintly. Their clawed hands trembled. The boy's chest rose and fell. His voice broke, but he screamed anyway. You are not his. You are people. You were alive. You had names, families, dreams. He cannot take that from you. The masked man's eyes narrowed behind the mask. He pressed the device harder, his voice rising like thunder. Obey me. The figures twitched violently. Their bodies turned back toward the boy, moving again faster. Stronger. The guard grabbed the boy's arm, pulling him back. You'll get yourself killed. But the boy ripped free, his tears streaming. His heart pounded like a drum, and then he did something he had never done before. He began to sing. It was not a song of beauty, not polished or perfect. His voice cracked, rough and weak, but it was pure. A melody from the streets, one he had sung in hunger, in loneliness, in despair. A song that once reminded him he was still human when the world treated him like trash. The sound echoed through the chamber. Trembling against the glass tanks, the figures froze. Their glowing eyes flickered like dying candles. Their twisted movements slowed. One by one, they turned their heads toward him, not as predators, but as something else. The boy's voice cracked, his throat burning, but he pushed through. His tears fell, his voice shaking. You're not gone. I know you can hear me. You're still alive. Please, come back. A silence fell. The figures stood motionless, their heads tilted slightly, as though listening, and then it happened. One of them, a woman with pale hair floating around her face, let out a sound. Not a hiss, not a growl, a sob. Her glowing eyes dimmed, tears forming at their edges. Her lips trembled as she whispered a single word. Help. The boy's heart stopped. His chest swelled with hope. Yes, I'm here. You're not alone anymore. The masked man's roar shattered the moment. No. He slammed the device against his palm, pressing it furiously. The figures screamed, their bodies jerking as though electrocuted. The woman's cry turned into a shriek of pain. The boy screamed back. Stop it. You're killing them. The masked man's voice was thunder, his rage uncontrollable. They are mine. Their voices are mine. Their pain is mine, and soon so will yours. The chamber's lights flickered violently. Sparks showered from hidden wires. The glass tanks around them trembled, as though the villain's fury itself shook the foundations of the room. The guard grabbed the boy's shoulder, pulling him close. Listen to me, we can't win here. He'll kill us both if we stay. But the boy's eyes stayed locked on the woman. She reached weakly toward the glass, her mouth trembling as if to form words. Her voice broke through the chaos in a whisper. He was one of us. The boy's blood ran cold. What? The masked man froze. The woman's trembling hand pressed against the glass, her voice filled with pain. He was inside. once. The guard's eyes widened in shock. Inside? She means the masked man's roar shook the chamber, silencing her. Enough. His hand slammed against the control device. The woman convulsed violently. Her glowing eyes went dark. Her body collapsed against the glass, lifeless. The boy screamed. No, the masked man's voice was fury and venom. I was born in their cages. I was remade in their tanks. I am not weak like them. I am what survival creates when hope is burned away. He stepped closer, his towering shadow stretching across the chamber. And you, boy, you will be the next. Meanwhile, in the white torture room, the billionaire's body trembled from the fire burning in his veins. His vision blurred, but his eyes still burned with fury. The doctor leaned closer, whispering, "Did you hear it? Did you hear her cry?" One of the dead begged for help. The billionaire's heart raced. His chest heaved. The doctor's smile widened. Your little pet, the boy, he heard it too. He thinks he can save them, but soon he will be broken, just like them. The billionaire's roar shattered his silence. His voice thundered, raw and unchained. If you touch him, I will rip this place apart with my bare hands. The doctor's smile only grew colder. Then you'd better pray his voice is stronger than yours. In the glass chamber, the boy stood trembling, the guard at his side. The masked man raised his hand, the broken device sparking with fury. Around them, more tanks began to hiss open. Liquid poured onto the floor as pale figures stepped out one by one. Their glowing eyes fixed on him, the boy's chest heaved, his tears falling. His heart screamed in terror. But deep inside, something burned brighter than fear. He clenched his fists. His voice broke, but it thundered anyway. Then I'll use the only thing you can't control. My voice. My hope. My heart, and I swear, I'll bring them back. The masked man's laughter shook the chamber, but for the first time, it carried a hint of fear. The hiss of the tanks filled the chamber like 1,000 serpents awakening. One by one, the glass slid open. Liquid spilled onto the floor, running in streams around the boy's feet and from the mist. They came, figures, dozens of them, pale, trembling, their skin marked with scars and tubes. Their eyes glowed faintly, unnatural light replacing human warmth. Some dragged their feet like the dead. Others moved with sharp, sudden jerks. The boy's breath caught. His chest heaved. His legs trembled so badly he nearly collapsed. The guard cursed under his breath, gripping the chain that still bound his wrist. There's too many. There's no way. The masked man stood tall at the center of the chamber. His voice was steady, commanding. Rise, my army. Rise, my shadows. Obey. The figures froze for a moment. Then their heads lifted together. Their glowing eyes snapped toward the boy and the guard. The masked man's voice thundered. Kill them. The boy staggered back, his heart hammering like a drum. The pale figures began to move, slow at first, then faster. Their steps echoing against the wet stone floor. The guard roared, swinging the chain like a weapon. It smashed into one figure's skull, sending it crashing to the ground, but it stood again. Jerking like a puppet, its glowing eyes unbroken, the boy's throat tightened. No weapon will stop them. The masked man's laughter echoed through the chamber. Fight. Break. Bleed. See how hope dies when numbers crush it? The boy's tears blurred his vision. But deep inside, something screamed louder than fear. He planted his feet. He clenched his fists. And then he shouted, Stop! The sound was raw, desperate. His voice cracked, trembling with tears. But it carried, the figures paused. Their glowing eyes flickered faintly. The masked man's head snapped toward him, his voice like a blade. Do not listen to him. The boy's chest heaved. His voice broke again, louder. You're not his. You are people. You had names, mothers, fathers, children. He stole your life, but he didn't steal you. Some of the figures twitched. A woman covered her ears. A man's lips trembled as if trying to form words. The guards stared in shock. It's working. The boy's voice cracked into a cry. Remember. Please. Remember who you are. The masked man's roar shook the chamber. No. He raised his sparking device high. With a violent press, a pulse of electricity shot through the tanks. Through the figure's veins, they convulsed violently, their glowing eyes burning brighter. Then, with shrieks, they surged forward again. The guard grabbed the boy's arm, yanking him aside as claws slashed through the air. The boy stumbled, falling hard against the wet stone. His body ached, but he forced himself up. The figures surrounded them, dozens of pale, trembling forms pressing closer. Their breath came in ragged gasps, like broken wind. The boy's tears streamed down his face. He screamed again, his throat tearing. You are not monsters. You are not his slaves. You are still human. For a moment the chamber froze. One figure, an older man with scars across his chest, stopped moving. His glowing eyes flickered dimly. His lips parted. I was Daniel. The boy's heart leaped. Yes, Daniel. That's your name. You are still you. The figure trembled, clutching his head as though fighting something inside. His glowing eyes flickered weakly. But then the masked man's voice thundered like fire. Daniel is dead. The device sparked again. The man screamed, collapsing onto his knees before rising. Eyes glowing brighter than before, the boy sobbed, his body shaking. He screamed back, No. You're not dead? I hear you. You're alive. The masked man's rage shook the walls. They are mine. Their voices are mine, and soon you will join them. Meanwhile, in the torture chamber, the billionaire strained against his chains, his wrists bleeding raw. Through the screens he could see glimpses of the glass chamber. The boy's broken voice echoed faintly through the walls. His heart pounded. His body shook violently. The doctor watched him closely. Listen. Your little pet screams against an army. Soon his voice will fail. And when it does, you will hear him beg for death. The billionaire's roar thundered through the chamber, rattling the chains. If he falls, I swear, I will burn this world to the ground to avenge him. The doctor's pale smile widened. Then perhaps you will burn with him. Back in the chamber of tanks, the figures pressed closer. The guard fought with fury, but his strength was fading. The boy's voice cracked into sobs, his throat raw. Still he did not stop. He dropped to his knees, pressing his hands to the wet floor. His tears fell, his chest heaving, and he whispered, not shouted this time. Just a whisper, please. Please remember, even if he owns your body, he can't own your soul. Please come back. The chamber fell silent. The figures twitched violently. Their glowing eyes flickered like broken lights. Some collapsed to their knees. Others clutched their heads. The sound of choked sobs began to echo through the room. The masked man froze. His hands trembled on the device. His voice shook with fury. No, no, you cannot take them from me. The boy lifted his head. His face was wet with tears, his body trembling, but his eyes burned with fire. They were never yours. The chamber exploded in chaos. Half the figures roared in pain, charging toward the boy under the masked man's command. The other half fell to the ground, clutching their chests, their glowing eyes dimming as faint whispers escaped their lips. My name. Mother. Home. The guard's eyes widened. He's splitting them apart. The boy staggered to his feet, his voice breaking but fierce. Fight him. Don't let him control you anymore. You are free. The masked man screamed, a roar of fury that shook the stone. You will not win. You are just a beggar boy, screaming into the dark. The boy's chest rose and fell. His throat burned. His voice broke into one final cry. Then let the dark hear me. The chamber filled with sound, raw, broken, human. Figures collapsed, sobbing. Chains sparked and shattered. The glowing eyes of many dimmed, replaced by tears. But not all. Some still moved, stronger, faster, consumed by the masked man's control. And as the boy's voice faltered, the masked man lifted his hand high. You may have taken some. His voice shook with fury. But the rest will tear you apart. The ground shook as the largest tank cracked open. Liquid poured out in waves, and from the mist, a towering figure emerged. Taller than any man, its body stitched with scars, its chest glowing faintly with light. The guard's face went pale. His voice trembled. That's not a man. That's a beast. The boy's eyes widened, his body frozen. The masked man's voice was thunder. Behold, my masterpiece. The ground trembled as the giant figure stepped out of the cracked tank. Liquid gushed down like a flood, covering the stone floor in a shallow pool. Steam rose, carrying with it the bitter smell of chemicals and blood. The boy stumbled back, his chest heaving. His eyes widened as the towering creature straightened its spine. Stitches covered its body like dark rivers. Metal clamps jutted from its arms, and faint blue light pulsed beneath its chest. Glowing with every heavy breath it took, it was taller than 3 men, broader than the guard. Its shadow fell across the entire chamber. The guard whispered, his voice hollow with disbelief, "This isn't human." The masked man spread his arms like a conductor before an orchestra. His voice rang with triumph. "Behold, the perfection of silence. My masterpiece. Neither man nor beast. A body that does not break. A will that cannot disobey." The creature's glowing eyes snapped open. Unlike the others, its light did not flicker. It burned steady, cold, merciless. The boy's breath caught in his throat. His voice cracked weakly. "No, please. You're still human. You can fight it." The masked man's laughter cut him like a knife. "This one has no name. No past. I erased everything. There is no voice to reach. Only silence." The creature stepped forward. Each footfall shook the stone floor. The water rippled around its ankles. The boy's knees trembled. His throat ached from screaming, his voice raw and broken, but he still tried. "You're alive. You can hear me. Please, don't listen to him." The creature didn't stop. Its giant hand rose, fingers like iron claws. With a single swipe, it slammed down toward the boy. The guard lunged, yanking the boy aside just in time. The creature's fists smashed into the stone, shattering the floor, sending shards flying. The boy crashed into the ground, his elbows scraping raw. He cried out in pain but scrambled to his knees. His heart thundered. The masked man's voice echoed, triumphant. "Yes, break him. Crush his voice forever." The guard roared, swinging the chain at the creature's head. The metal whipped across its scarred face, but the monster didn't flinch. It turned slowly, its glowing eyes locking on the guard. The guard's breath caught. He muttered under his breath, "Oh no." The giant hand grabbed the chain mid-swing. With a violent tug, it yanked the guard off his feet, slamming him into the wall with a sickening crack. "No." The boy screamed, his throat tearing. The guard groaned, blood trailing from his mouth. But he was still alive, barely conscious. The boy's tears blurred his vision. His chest shook violently. He crawled to the guard's side, shaking his arm. "Please, don't die. I need you." The guard coughed, his voice weak but steady. "Kid, forget me. Stop him. Use your voice." The boy shook his head violently. "It's not working. He doesn't listen." The guard forced a bloody smile. "Then scream louder. Scream with your heart. Don't just shout words. Give him your soul." Creature's shadow loomed again. Its massive foot stomped closer, each step cracking the floor. The boy's heart pounded. His throat burned. His body trembled, and then he stood. He faced the giant with shaking legs. Fists clenched, tears streaming down his face. He screamed, not just words, not just desperation. He poured everything into it: fear, hope, grief, love. "You are not silence. You are alive." The chamber shook. His voice carried like thunder, echoing off every wall, every corner. The creature froze mid-step. The masked man's eyes widened behind his mask. "No, impossible." The boy screamed again, his voice raw and breaking. You're not his monster. You're not his toy. You are still human. For a heartbeat, the glowing eyes flickered. The creature's massive hand trembled as though it were unsure. The masked man's fury erupted. He slammed his device, sending a violent shockwave through the air. The creature convulsed, its roar shaking the chamber. The boy's heart nearly stopped. He screamed again, tears running down his face. Fight him. Don't let him own you. You are more than his silence. The creature clutched its head, its massive body jerking violently. It staggered, caught between two voices, the masked man's command and the boy's plea. The masked man roared, veins bulging at his neck. Obey me. The boy sobbed, his voice tearing apart as he cried out, Remember? Please, remember who you are. The creature fell to its knees, slamming the ground. The shockwave knocked the boy back, nearly into the water. The guard shielded his face. Coughing blood, the chamber filled with a terrible sound, the monster's guttural roar, mixed with something faint beneath it, a whisper, a broken word, help. The boy's eyes widened. His heart leapt. Yes, I hear you. You're still in there. The masked man's device sparked violently. He screamed in rage, pressing every switch, flooding the creature with light. The beast convulsed, roaring so loud the walls shook. Its glowing chest burned brighter, almost blinding, and then it stopped. The creature lifted its head slowly. Its eyes no longer glowed steady. They flickered weakly, like a candle in the wind. The masked man froze. His voice cracked. No, no, you belong to me. The creature turned its massive head toward him. Its chest heaved. Its voice, deep and broken, rumbled through the chamber. Not yours. The boy collapsed to his knees, crying with relief. The guard whispered, stunned, He broke through. The masked man's fury became madness. He screamed, smashing the device against the floor. Sparks flew. Then you will all burn with him. The chamber shook violently as hidden machinery roared to life. Red lights flashed along the walls. The boy's heart stopped. What's happening? The guard groaned, pulling himself to his feet. His voice was weak, but urgent. He's triggering the collapse. He'd rather bury us all than lose, the creature growled, its fists clenching. For the first time, it looked free. The boy's tear-streaked face turned toward it. Please, help us stop him. The creature's massive head lowered. A faint nod. For the first time, the boy was not alone. The walls groaned like dying giants. Cracks spread across the stone, dust raining down from the ceiling. Red lights flashed in rhythm with the wailing sirens. The boy's heart pounded so violently it felt like his chest would break. His throat was raw, his voice nearly gone, but his eyes still burned with tears and fire. Beside him, the guard leaned against the wall, blood soaking his torn uniform. His chain dragged uselessly at his side, but his jaw was set, his gaze sharp, and in front of them, the towering creature. Stitches glowing under the red light stood free at last. The masked man staggered backward, sparks flying from his broken control device. His voice was cracked, but his rage was unbroken. You think you've won? You think a beggar's scream can undo years of perfection? He pointed toward the collapsing ceiling, his voice like thunder. This place will bury you all. The world above will never know you lived, never know you fought. You will die in silence just as I created you to. The boy stumbled forward, his voice shaking but clear. No, you didn't create silence. You created pain. But we created hope. The masked man froze. For the first time, his body trembled, his confidence faltering. The guard coughed blood, but forced a smile. Kid, don't waste words on him. End this. The creature's massive head lowered. Its chest glowed faintly with light, not of the machine, but of something human. It growled, voice deep and broken. I choose freedom. The boy turned to it, his tears spilling. Then fight with us. The chamber shook violently. Pipes burst, spilling fire and steam. The water on the floor hissed and boiled. The masked man lunged toward a console on the far wall. His gloved hands slammed against buttons, releasing more alarms. If I cannot control you, then I will destroy everything. Above us is the city. If this chamber falls, the ground will break, buildings will burn, thousands will die. Their screams will be my music." The boy's heart stopped. His voice cracked in terror. "No, no, please, you'll kill them." The masked man's laughter echoed, mad and broken. "Yes, let the world drown in silence with me." The creature roared, shaking the chamber. It swung its massive arm, smashing aside falling debris. The guard shouted over the chaos. "Kid, we can't let him escape. This ends now." The boy nodded, tears falling. His chest burned, but he screamed with every piece of himself, "You're not taking anyone else." He charged forward, his tiny frame against the giant chaos. The guard stumbled after him. The creature followed, its heavy steps cracking the stone. The masked man turned, his cape whipping, eyes glowing faintly behind the mask. He pulled a hidden blade from his sleeve, sharp and curved. Then die trying. The fight erupted. The guard swung his chain with fury, striking the masked man's arm. Sparks flew as the blade was knocked aside. The masked man retaliated, slamming his fists into the guard's chest. Sending him sprawling to the ground, the boy screamed, rushing in. He grabbed a fallen metal rod and swung with all his strength. It cracked against the masked man's shoulder, making him stagger, but not fall. The masked man's laughter cut through the chaos. Pathetic. A street rat with a stick thinks he can slay me? The creature roared and charged, swinging its massive fist. The masked man leapt aside with shocking speed. The punch smashed into the wall, collapsing stone in an avalanche. Dust choked the air. The boy coughed, eyes burning, but didn't stop. He screamed through the dust, "We're not scared of you anymore." The masked man struck again, blade flashing. The boy stumbled back, nearly falling. At the last second, the creature's massive hand blocked the strike, the blade sinking into its scarred flesh. The creature roared in pain but did not fall. It ripped the blade from the masked man's hand and hurled it across the chamber. The weapon clattered into the fire, melting instantly. The masked man froze. For the first time, his voice shook. "No, impossible." The boy stood tall, his voice raw but steady. "You lost the moment we remembered who we are." The guard, bloody but unbroken, staggered to his feet, his voice thundering. "And now you answer for it." The creature roared one final time. Its fist crashed down with all its strength. The masked man screamed as the blow struck, the sound echoing through the chamber. Stone shattered, the floor collapsing beneath him. His body was swallowed by the darkness below, his mask torn away in the fall. His scream faded into silence. The boy collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving, tears pouring down his cheeks. The guard fell beside him, laughing weakly through his blood. You did it, kid." The creature stood above them, breathing hard, but its glowing chest dimmed slowly.
Softly.
But the chamber still collapsed. Cracks split the ceiling. Massive chunks of stone fell. Fire burst from broken pipes. The whole world seemed to be ending. The guard shouted, his voice urgent. "Kid, we can't stay here. We need to escape." The boy turned desperately to the creature. "Help us, please." The giant nodded once. With careful hands, it scooped the boy and the guard into its massive arms. Then it roared, charging toward the blocked entrance. Its fists smashed stone aside, tearing open a path. Light spilled through, a faint glimpse of the world above. The boy's heart leapt. We're almost there. But behind them, the ceiling gave way completely. The masked man's machines exploded in fire. The roar of destruction chased them like a storm. With one final push, the creature hurled the boy and the guard upward, through the cracked opening into the night air. They tumbled onto the ground, coughing, crying, alive. The boy turned instantly, reaching out. "No, come with us." The creature looked up through the collapsing stone. Its glowing chest flickered softly, almost like a heartbeat. Its massive hand rose one last time in farewell. Free. And then the chamber collapsed, burying it beneath endless stone. Silence fell. Only the crackle of fire remained. The boy sobbed, reaching toward the rubble. The guard pulled him close, his voice shaking. He saved us. He chose his end. The boy buried his face against the guard's chest, crying so hard he couldn't breathe. His voice cracked in a whisper. He wasn't a monster. He was human. The guard's bloody hand rested on his shoulder. And because of you, kid. He remembered that. Dawn broke hours later. Rescuers pulled the boy and guard from the ruins. Reporters swarmed. Cameras flashed. The billionaire rescued from the torture chamber above toward them, tears streaking his face. He dropped too.